Hello, everyone. I am Molly, filling in for Darren this week, hosting. Making sure everybody is in and can hear the audio. Great. Okay. So thanks to everyone for joining us for today's Tuesday topic, Research Skills and Introduction to ResearchMatch. Our presenter today is Arun Ramakrishnan. He's the Director of Research Labs. This is brought to you by CNHP Research, Discovery and Innovation. We're still updating, in the process of updating events for fall of this year and beyond. So please visit the Tuesday Topics site in the future and bookmarks any things that you'd like to go to for future events. And there'll also be links as well at the bottom of the page towards the end. All right, so with that said, Arun, I'll hand it over to you.
Thanks, Molly, and thanks, Steve, for helping us with the Zoom settings. Hello, everybody. I see a few people are still joining in, and we'll get started with the basics of ResearchMatch. If any of you have heard about ResearchMatch or have already had experience with ResearchMatch, you pretty much know what it is. Let's quickly jump into what ResearchMatch is. It's something that Drexel recently signed up, and it's an NIH-funded initiative that began in 2010, and it was based on a CTSA consortium. It's a federally funded grant, and it's a platform that matches people interested in research with investigators and study teams in order to support and raise awareness for opportunities that involve in research nationwide. So we're tapping into a nationwide pool. This is not a Drexel exclusive, it's a nationwide pool of researchers and volunteers. It was developed by the same guys who created RedCap. So you're familiar with RedCap. It's a pretty secure online data collection program, Vanderbilt University Medical College. So why is ResearchMatch needed? Many studies end early because there's not enough volunteers. At the same time, people are looking for research studies to join, but they're unable to find it either online or on-site. As a result, it may affect communities' health. Most of the communities' health concerns go unanswered because of that. Who can become a ResearchMatch volunteer? We are talking about who will be your end participants for your studies. Anyone living in the US, including Puerto Rico, can join ResearchMatch. For legal reasons, it can only be for people who have a registered address in the US. They might be traveling, but they should have a registered address in the US. A parent or legal guardian or caretaker can register a child under 18 or register as an adult. Actually, children can participate in a ResearchMatch if the parents or legal guardian can sign off on that. So there is a provision that's coming up. So we can conduct studies with children as well. As of June 2020, Drexel University is part of ResearchMatch amongst their 170 some institutions. So in this presentation, we'll address two different parts. Part one is things that you can do right now because Drexel is registered as a ResearchMatch institution. So today we'll cover what is it and how it can be used, registering yourself as a Drexel researcher, searching for potential volunteers, conducting a feasibility study, and then finally adding ResearchMatch to your IRB protocol to enable using this feature in the future. So we have just clarified with IRB what needs to be done to get your study eligible for ResearchMatch participation. Part two is something I would cover, but you do not have to pay much attention right now because this is only useful after your research study has been IRB approved and you're ready to go forward to contact your volunteers. So that would involve recruitment level access, which is registering your IRB approved study within ResearchMatch and getting recruitment access, contacting potential volunteers, and managing the volunteer continuum, which helps you with finding out who all responded, who participated, who did not, and the whole lot of things, along with reporting that is required for your throughout the life cycle of the study. So we will still address part two, but part one is what I would expect us to have a take-home message and get started with. So some definitions today, a researcher is a person who has been given access to use ResearchMatch. It could include professional staff, team members, students, and actually you can actually have a study that is completely managed by the team and not necessarily have the PI in the mix at all. That is also possible for big studies in which the participant handling is done by the team. It's definitely possible to do that, but the PI has to still get an IRB approved study. So the institutional liaison, currently it's me. In the future, we'll have people representing each college or even subdivisions to participate as institutional liaisons. These are the people who review the access into ResearchMatch, would review every single study that goes into the ResearchMatch, and we have to provide periodic updates to the ResearchMatch community, the organizers, about what's happening at Drexel. So it is still, the ResearchMatch itself is still a project handled by Vanderbilt. So we have certain obligations for being part of that. There are two kinds of access, two levels of access. Recruitment access allows the researchers to use ResearchMatch to contact potential volunteers. The researchers must have an IRB approved study and an IRB approved contact message. We'll address that later. Feasibility access is an access that allows researchers to search for registry information only, say race, ethnicity, age, gender, even zip code. We'll address that as well. And contact message is something we use frequently. It is the information that researchers sends through ResearchMatch to potential volunteers. That's the first message they'll receive about your study. So there are some rules and regulations as to how to structure that study, structure that message that you'd be sending out to volunteers. How ResearchMatch works. It's a multi-step process, but it starts with the researcher registering as a researcher in ResearchMatch and adding an IRB approved study to the mix. Then the PI would confirm that the study is valid. The liaison confirms the study messaging and everything conforms to ResearchMatch guidelines, and the researcher accepts it. Then they'll search for a amongst the volunteer pool. Again, this is not a Drexel exclusive volunteer pool. Anybody can sign up as a ResearchMatch volunteer, and you'll have complete access over the entire volunteer pool. So all 170, 180 institutions will have access to the volunteer pool. So you'll search for which subcategories make most sense for your study. And then once you hit that message to contact them, you can contact them in batches. You can contact them all together. You can contact them randomly. ResearchMatch has all those options to do contacting your participants. And ResearchMatch will send the volunteers a contact message, and volunteers have an option to choose yes or no. Only when they choose yes, the researcher will get the full contact information of the volunteer. Until then, all they would have is information about their metadata, so their ethnicity, age, gender, location, medical conditions. That's all you have. But once they hit yes, you'll get the actual email address and contact information, sometimes even physical address. So you can do two kinds of studies: survey only study, or you can actually do recruit them for in-person studies as well. So in part one, how to register as a researcher. This is something I would encourage everybody to do right now, because Drexel has been added as a domain within ResearchMatch. And there is a quick 5-minute video to watch, and let's just go through that. If you don't hear any audio in the next 2 minutes, please let me know.
So let's jump right in, and let me tell you about how a researcher registers and how they gain feasibility access. And here's this diagram again. Remember, the researcher has to create their own account. We don't like accounts for a whole lab. We don't like somebody using someone else's account. We like each researcher to register themselves. And they start by clicking on researchers right here on the website, and then they can register now. And you can, anybody at your institution who has a valid email at your institution can go ahead and do this today. After they click on register, they will see a list of institutions to choose from. They'll choose their institution. They will put in their valid email, like this one, at vanderbilt.edu. If it is not a valid email, like let's say this person put in a gmail.com, It will not accept that because it recognizes the domains from your institution. Next, the researcher receives a validation email and enters the verification code sent in that email on the ResearchMatch website. And the researcher agrees to your site-specific instructions and also has to read the researcher acknowledgement form and then types accept into this box in capital letters, ACCEPT, and then clicks next. So again, they'll see your site instructions and the researcher acknowledgement form. And this is a screenshot of the researcher acknowledgement form. Each researcher is accepting that they understand this document. And this basically says that they are the researcher in this study, they are key study personnel, they are either the PI or they are associated with the study. They understand that the rules and regulations and policies from their local IRB are applicable throughout the entire recruitment process on ResearchMatch. I agree that any communications with volunteers will utilize content and language with the removal of study contact information, which has been approved by my local IRB. And I'll show you what that looks like in a minute. They also say that they understand that no volunteer is obligated to respond to their initial message. They will treat volunteers' personally identifiable data from ResearchMatch as confidential, to be used solely for the purposes of recruitment of volunteers into their IRB approved study for which the volunteer has authorized release of their contact information. So the researchers will enter their contact information, like their email and their phone number. They'll create a username and a password and fill out some security questions when they register. And the researcher is directed to their dashboard with feasibility access only. Okay, so if they were to start searching, they would do a feasibility search. The researcher is also emailed an email from ResearchMatch telling them that they can log in and gain feasibility access. They can also register for training. Now, if they...
All right, we'll stop right there. So that's how you register for a study. And just to give you a quick look at where Drexel would appear, if you go to researchmatch.org, if you go to researchers and go to register now, in the drop down you'll see Drexel University here, right there. And you can use any form of your email address as long as it ends in @drexel.edu. It could be alias, it could be your ABC123 format, it could be the full name, whatever that you can use to get your access to Drexel University email can be used in here. And also ResearchMatch after this creates a unique user ID. So you wouldn't be logging in with your email after that, you'd be logging in with a specific user ID that ResearchMatch has created. So mine is Arun R. It just gave me that option. I said yes. It's still tied to your email, but it'll get you to this page, and this is what you would see as a researcher once your login is active. It takes a while, but it does work. So this is what you'll see once you have access to the research end of ResearchMatch. Mine also has a liaison site, so it shows other stuff, but this is what you'd see, the researcher dashboard. So once we are in there, let me go back to my presentation. There is a step-by-step in my SharePoint page that goes through the same thing, but if you have any questions, don't feel free to email me. So next steps to do, I would recommend, is register yourself as a Drexel ResearchMatch researcher, get yourself a user ID, and then attend one of the ResearchMatch training that happens every second Thursday at 3 p.m. Eastern Time. The Zoom link is available right here, but it's also on that website in which, in here in the dashboard, there is your register for monthly training right there. So you can feel free to use that as well. So I think this is, yeah, you can register here. I would highly recommend that because ResearchMatch can get pretty complicated, but to get you started with a simple feasibility analysis, just attending that training would take you through that process. So next. So once you have registered as a researcher with ResearchMatch, you immediately get signed in as researcher with feasibility studies only. You would not be allowed to post any studies unless the PI or the IRB has approved a study. So to perform the search for volunteers. Again, it's another video. I just found that from professionals, they're the best way to learn this. I have slides taking you through this, but
this video will cover how to
take note.
perform a search for volunteers. To begin, it is important to define our terms. So, what is the difference between a feasibility and recruitment search? Feasibility searches allow researchers to use ResearchMatch for searching aggregate registry information only. This is the default setting when registering as a researcher and does not require registration of an IRB-approved study. Recruitment searches, on the other hand, are for contacting potential volunteers using the ResearchMatch system. To access this, researchers must have an approved and uploaded letter from the IRB. We begin on the researcher dashboard. As you can see, we currently have no registered studies and are therefore limited to performing feasibility searches. Click Start Searching to begin searching for volunteers. There are several steps or filtering sections to build a search. The filters act like a drop-down menu. You can use these filters to refine your cohort. As you move through the filters, ResearchMatch will update the number of volunteers meeting your search criteria. Please note that when performing a feasibility search, data is rounded to the nearest 10. This means that if you yield a count of 10, that 1 to 10 ResearchMatch volunteers match your search criteria. If there are no matches, the search will yield a count of 0. First, we will choose the type of search. As we do not yet have a study registered, we are limited to a feasibility search. Within this section, you have the ability to load previously saved search criteria. You may also save your search at any time by clicking Save Search As at the bottom of the screen. After selecting feasibility as our search type, we can move through the filters to refine our cohort. Let's say that we only want to include volunteers who live less than 50 miles from our location. ResearchMatch auto-populates your address based on institution. If your institution has multiple locations, you should see these in the drop-down menu. You may use as many location filters as you would like. In the next section, you can filter by a number of demographic filters. Let's say that we want to include volunteers ages 18 to 55. Click the Add button next to age criteria and enter the age range that we would like to include. As you can see, the total number of volunteers found has decreased to around 80. This tab is always visible as you scroll through the filters so that you have an idea of how your searches are affecting the number of volunteers fitting the criteria. Let's move on to the Health Conditions filter. Click here to read the instructions. The Health and Medication Filter System uses the logic operators AND, OR to help you refine your results. Using OR makes your set larger, and makes your set smaller. In our case, we want to include individuals with high blood pressure while excluding volunteers with coronary artery disease. To do this, I will enter high blood pressure into the Include Set 1, select the condition from the drop-down menu, and click Add. As you can see, this search will now include volunteers with high blood pressure. This section will update as you add more inclusion and exclusion criteria. Now, if we want to exclude individuals with coronary artery disease, we first need to click the Exclude Set tab. Type in the condition and click Add. As you can see, we are now including volunteers with high blood pressure while excluding volunteers with coronary artery disease. It's a good idea to check this box before moving forward to ensure that you have entered everything correctly. The medications filters work in the same way, and since we don't need to add any medication criteria, we will move on. At the bottom of the page, beneath the Save Search and Contact Volunteers button, you will see a summary of your search. This is a good way to verify everything is correct before moving on to the Select Volunteers section. You can also see how each search affected the number of volunteers meeting the criteria. In our case, the location criteria removed a significant portion of the ResearchMatch population. As we are only performing a feasibility search, the Select Volunteers button is grayed out. However, if you have an IRB-approved study, you will be able to move forward and select volunteers you wish to contact. More questions? Please feel free to.
So that is how to search for volunteers. It's one important thing to note is this is a national database with all the 176 institutions listed in there. Everybody is right now in the COVID pandemic mode, so online research is kind of what's happening right now. And research volunteers who have signed up for research are bombarded with so many recruitment emails. I got like 7 emails just today talking about COVID health, and I have to pick and choose. So it is very important that we get the right audience for our study and not blast everybody with the email. And also, the more emails you get, they tend to put that in spam, and they eventually fall out of ResearchMatch, which has been a sign that they've been seeing recently, because people have been just bombarding them with just emails for participating in research. And they're also, these days, they're encouraging that there be some monetary compensation, although not necessary, but it is a recommendation from them. So to keep the volunteers engaged within ResearchMatch. So that's it. That's an important criteria to think about before posting, searching for your volunteer group. Again, this is basically, I'm gonna skip through these because it's the same same items in text form basically. So part one, like I said, part one's gonna be how to sign up as a researcher in ResearchMatch, and then conduct your feasibility study. And then we'll end up with how do we add ResearchMatch as a recruitment strategy for our IRB study. So let me see where there is. So this is a document that we created with the advice of the Human Research Protection program. So for now, the way to add ResearchMatch as a mode of recruitment would be to include that you're adding this as a modality in your HRP 503 or 504, the newer IRB protocol template. Mention it in the recruitment and methods and the other sections where it's applicable. And over here in this highlighted area, you would adhere to ResearchMatch compliance guidelines and write down the message that you'd want to send out to your potential volunteers. This is the first message they'll receive from your study. So it has to be short. It should not be solicitous. It should be very straightforward and to the point. And it's our job as liaisons to like approve this message and ResearchMatch to oversee this. So it is very important that this is this portion where you include that in the protocol as a recruitment method, and this message would be the only things you'd have to fill out in this form and submit it as an addendum to your current IRB protocol. And this will enable you to use ResearchMatch as a modality. And then once you get the IRB approved flyer for this one, you will attach it and add a new study. So far, are there any questions in just these 3 things? These are the steps I can do right now. Any questions on this so far? Molly, I'm going to trust you to look into the chat. Any questions?
Let's see here. You're welcome to put any questions that you have in the chat, or if you have a question now, you're all welcome to unmute as well.
Yeah, you can just voice it out. Alrighty, looks like everybody's on board. I've also created a SharePoint site, and we're working on making it public. So right now, this is a SharePoint site. Once I have it public, I'll share it with everybody. But once you sign up as a register as a ResearchMatch researcher, you will have access to pretty much all the information that I'm giving you, all the videos and everything. It's all going to be on your dashboard. Okay, so I guess we'll move on to the next part. So part 2, like I said, is going to be about once you have the IRB approval, you want to post your study online on ResearchMatch, select your volunteers. Remember, you can also use the volunteers you had saved from your early searches in which you did just feasibility studies. You can use that volunteer pool here as well. So adding a study, contacting your potential volunteers, getting the yes responses, and then following them through the study. So that will be part 2. This would make more sense the more you go hands-on. So before posting your study, 2 things to note is only health-related studies should be posted on ResearchMatch. And as I mentioned, Drexel IRB approval requires a 2-step process. Include ResearchMatch as a recruitment method in your protocol and submit the addendum that includes ResearchMatch volunteer contact email message. Another video from ResearchMatch people about how to submit an approved IRB study.
This video will cover adding a study and contacting volunteers. So how does it work? ResearchMatch volunteers who have registered with ResearchMatch are connected with researchers who are conducting studies that they match with the volunteer's background. First, researchers register themselves and their IRB-approved study on ResearchMatch. The liaison then reviews the application and approves it. Then researchers can come on to ResearchMatch, look at the de-identified information about the volunteers, and choose a group of volunteers that seem to be a good match for their study. They then submit an IRB-approved contact message that the ResearchMatch system sends out to volunteers by email. The volunteer receives an email that contains the study information. The volunteer then has the option of accepting or denying the request to learn more about the researcher's studies. If the volunteer says that they would like to learn more, then their contact information is released to the researcher. The first step is to click Add a New Study on the researcher dashboard. In the first section, the researcher will specify their role in the study. When the researcher is not the PI must approve the researcher to allow them access. Be sure to identify yourself correctly. In step 2, you will enter basic information about the study, including the IRB number and contact type. If you have an interventional study and select recruitment, you will have the opportunity to enter a REDCap pre-screening survey later in the contact process. You must upload an IRB letter of approval to add a study. This must be a current letter which clearly indicates the IRB number of the study, the IRB expiration date of the study title, evidence that the study has been approved, and the first and last name of the PI. This flowchart is to help you visualize the process of gaining recruitment access. If you register and are not the PI must approve your access with a 2-step process. The PI will receive an email to allow you, the proxy researcher, access. Please note that the PI cannot reply to this email. They must first click Authorize Access. This will redirect them to the ResearchMatch website, where they will need to click Yes to confirm the approval. The study is then sent to the institutional liaison for approval. The liaison will verify that the study has uploaded a current IRB letter of approval before approving the request. After liaison approval, the proxy researcher will receive an email to self-validate. Once self-validating, the researcher will gain recruitment access. At this point, the study will be listed as confirmed under the Your Study section of the researcher dashboard. Click Start Searching to begin looking for volunteers. To learn more about performing a search, view the video entitled Performing a Search for Volunteers. After applying filters to refine your cohort, click Select Volunteers. ResearchMatch will show you a list of people that you may want to contact based on your search criteria. You will still only have anonymous information, but if you click on the Details section, you will be able to see the health information of these people. This will include anonymous demographic information like age, BMI, conditions, and medications. If your search results are more than 1,500 volunteers, you will be forced to manually or automatically select a number below 1,500 to contact. After you have selected who you would like to contact, prepare your contact message. You may only enter IRB approved contact message language in the box. This means no direct contact information or URLs. When a researcher adds the pre-screening survey feature, a place for them to upload the URL is made available when contacting volunteers. The volunteer does not see the pre-screening survey in the contact message. They are only redirected to it if they say, "Yes, I'm interested." In the bottom section, certify that you are entering only IRB-approved language and not including URLs or contact information in your message. You may preview your message before sending. After you've verified that your message is correct, click Send Message. If a volunteer is interested in the study, they may click Yes, I'm interested within the body of the contact message. This will release their contact information to you, the researcher. If you have a REDCap pre-screening survey in place, the volunteer will be notified that they must confirm yes again, and then they will be redirected to your REDCap pre-screening survey. This is the enrollment continuum.
All right, at this point, we'll take a pause and look through the slides again. So adding a new study is pretty straightforward. All right. So this is how the message appears in your volunteers' email in the email inbox. So as they mentioned, the system is smart enough to identify if anybody's putting a .com, .edu URL in there. We don't want any study specific links on the email message. They have to hit yes or no. That's the only two options they should be given during this message. At the same time, don't include any phone numbers or study identifiers that they can just search it in Google and go to your study. You want them to go through ResearchMatch. That's the only way to get their contact information. So there'll be like multiple checks for these contact messages for the participants. You can include remunerations, any kind of participation fee that is gift. You can include it in there, or you can include if your study is involved in that raffle kind of structure, that is also possible. It all depends on what the IRB has approved for your study. This adding REDCap as a pre-screening is totally optional. You don't have to do it. If you prefer to get all the subjects information and then approach them with the Qualtrics or REDCap survey, that's totally okay. But since Vanderbilt is the one created REDCap, they also have this link out to a pre-screening, so you can only talk to the volunteers that really would get involved in your study. So the enrollment continuum is something that ResearchMatch highly encourages us to follow in terms of identifying whether the participants have completed all the way through the study, or if there is any problem or somebody got rejected because of a pre-screening test that they did not qualify. So that would be the second part of the video. It's a quick video.
You may access.
To just clarify, this will all make sense if you go hands-on once you have recruitment level access. Also, even recruitment level access to your study. Until then, all these things will be hidden in your dashboard. You won't be able to see these.
This page by clicking on your IRB approved study in the dashboard. Here you have access to all volunteers who clicked yes in the contact message. You may export their health and contact information. On this page, you will also see details about the study, a link to remove yourself, or to close the study. It is important to note that if you close the study, it cannot be reopened and all information will be lost. We recommend allowing the study to expire or requesting for your institutional liaison to disable the study. If you have more questions, please email us at info@researchmatch.org.
Or you can email me. Like they mentioned, the institutional liaison can play an important role in any technical questions. If once you close the study, it's done. So it's easy. It's more than recommended to let it expire or let us know to disable the study, so there are no new people signing up for that. So that is Continuum. My slides are kind of repetitive from what you've seen on the website or from the video. So I'm just going to quickly go through and see if there is anything that needs to be emphasized. So new features that have been added in ResearchMatch is adding Spanish language to it. The website itself has a translated, a live translated Spanish transcription. However, as a researcher, when you submit to ResearchMatch, if you prefer your audience, if your audience is predominantly Spanish, you would have to get an IRB approved message for that specific message as well and submit two different ones. If one is for English, one is for Spanish, it has to be separately submitted. It does not live transcribe your messages. The messages have to still be done by yourself and then approved by IRB. So yeah, you get an option to choose here whether you want to do English or Spanish. There are some new features called trials today, which help researchers, volunteers sign up for, just go through like a shopping mall of studies and then sign up for studies. This is just came out last month, so I'm not that familiar with it. It's something that participants can go and just join in for any studies instead of going through the email contact and then come back. So this is like a national registry. So there are other ways to get your study posted on ResearchMatch, but the primary way is to contact your volunteers through emails. So that's the end of my presentation. I could still show you some of the researcher dashboard events, things that that they're talking about, but it's a little slow. So I can stop here and take any questions. I have a question from Gabby.
There's one question in the chat.
Yeah. If IRB terminates the suspension study, I will try. Yeah. So there will be, so in this situation, I am the only institutional liaison put in the system, but in the future we'll have multiple liaisons. IRB can be one of the liaisons, but the liaison should be in a position to contact the PIs quickly. So I'm usually in institutions, it's either member representatives from the department or college, or if there is a huge grant, program level grant, there'll be like multiple, there'll be a liaison for that program specific grant. But I can definitely talk to Gabby about this in the future to see if IRB personnel would want to be a liaison. That's totally okay. We can do that. This is a mock study that I have. We have 9 mock participants, just to show you what it will look like in a continuum. Other than that, any other questions in terms of what you can or cannot do, or what it is, or if you have any specific project questions pertaining to your project and you want to see if ResearchMatch would be a good contender for that, go ahead and let me know. We have 10 more minutes.
I do have a couple questions, if that's all right. This is Zach.
Yeah.
So kind of jumping off of Gabby's question, do we need to worry about updating the IRB approval after the expiration date, if it's given an annual expiration date, or is it just that initial approval period that we need to include?
Yes, good question. That is something that most people ask, because they do extend their study, and then that's why that specific mention is about don't close your study, let it expire. So IRB expiration dates, as far as the recent information I have, is they're not stamped on the flyer or not explicitly mentioned for like minimally risk studies, right? So so we can put an expiration date. If it expires, it is okay. ResearchMatch will notify the PI and as well as the liaisons. So we will try to either extend the date or try to, we will not close the study. So disable the study and then extend it again. So we'll keep the volunteers who have been added to the mix in the study. So we do not want to start a new study.
But if the continuing review was submitted and approved, it would just continue. We don't need to do anything special to keep it open.
The PI does not have to do anything special. The liaison would need the newest approved IRB form with the new expiration date, and they can moderate that part.
Okay. And then I had a couple other questions as well. I was wondering if you knew or could speak at all to how this might interact with clinicaltrials.gov. There's a section there that you can provide contact. Would we link them to ResearchMatch from there? Or how would we or integrate those two different places?
In clinical trials, you can post your studies and have people contact you. Well, whereas ResearchMatch only deals with the volunteers that have signed up within that. So you might want to encourage them to join ResearchMatch, but unless they put in the same medical condition as, ResearchMatch is not a Drexel exclusive pool. So if you say, oh, you 10 students, join in this project, and then I'll contact you through ResearchMatch, that is unlikely to happen. They all have to have the same medical conditions, and ResearchMatch will do the searching for you. So it's not a one-on-one. So if you knew the members who want to, or if you have a publicly viewable site for your study, that is still a best way to get volunteers to your research directly. ResearchMatch is just a wider search tool for people who have volunteered to join in, but it's not, if you know your participants, it's better to just reach out to them directly. Yeah.
Okay. Great. And then is there a way in ResearchMatch that you can export information to keep in the study record? Or... Yeah,
so all of this, ResearchMatch is primarily just an address book, right? So it's basically just a contact list. Once they say yes, you get all their information. They allow you to export it as an Excel, but they highly warn you that it's all identifiable information once you export that file. So they want you to keep it within Drexel encrypted systems, and even within research files that are even the unblinded side of things. So it's easy to just take this whole thing and export it as an Excel file. You can do all contacts and then hit export.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
There are a couple questions in the chat. Cynthia had asked if more than one researcher can register for the same study.
Yes, research team members are highly encouraged. It was a good question because while I was discussing this with Dr. Miller and another researcher as well, and Dr. Shem, we were thinking, can we add a research study name like a Drexel research study at drexel.edu and then use that as my ResearchMatch login? Technically, yes, but they do not recommend it for liability reasons and for audit trails. We always want the team members to register as themselves. And one team member can be in multiple studies, multiple team members can be in one study. So ResearchMatch is a good way of segregating those things. So it's always recommended you sign in as a researcher with your personal email address and let them know whether you are the PI or you're the team member. So depending on that, your level of approvals will change. So I hope that answers the question.
Okay.
And Gabby has clarified that they don't stamp flyers routinely. So expiration date will be based on what the researcher has put in the IRB protocol. And I'll get some more clarifications on expanding the expiration date. That's something that many people have asked. Like research, again, one thing I want to make clear is that ResearchMatch is a huge community. And during these monthly researchers training and the liaisons training, everybody comes together and answers each other's question. And it's really a very collegial environment. And most of these concerns get brought up in there. This is my first month attending that. So the one of the major questions was exactly that. If a study closes, what do I do? Do I close the study? And then they made that video specifically to say, don't close the study. It is a work in progress, but for now, the part 1 sections is something everybody should be comfortable doing, and get on with that, and then submitting your IRB approved addendum to get your study approved for ResearchMatch. Anything else? Any other questions?
Okay.
Okay.
Well, if there's no more questions, I will also post in the chat a link to where you can find future Tuesday topics, as well as any of the recordings that we have. They get posted to CNHP's YouTube channel. And this is also recorded as well, so you can use this as reference in the future. And of course, if you have future questions, you can always reach out to Arun as well. Is there anything else that you would like to add, Arun?
Sure. Like I said, the liaison is your conduit to any questions regarding ResearchMatch. So liaisons meeting we have once a month. Actually, there's once a month. If you have any procedural questions that I may not know, and I am privy to maybe 10 to 20% of ResearchMatch features, send it to me. I will get the advice of the people who build the software. But I would highly encourage, go ahead and attend your researchers training, which is happening next week. That'll be, you can post all your questions there. I would recommend that you have your researcher login enabled prior to attending that, so you can like do some hands-on and test it yourself. Again, without IRB approval, it's all in feasibility mode. So go ahead and play with the software. You'll be able to figure out whether ResearchMatch really matches, really works for your study or not. So I would highly encourage that. So that's pretty much all I've got.
All right. Well, thank you all for joining us, and I hope you have a great day.